Okay, so we're on verse 52.
पढ़ो तो उसका संस्कृत पढ़ो जोर से पढ़ो हाँ पढ़ो पढ़ो नहीं क्लास चालू हो गया आ जाइए हाँ 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 पढ़िए बस अभी
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय
Om Namo
भगवते
Bhagavate
वासुदेवाय
Om Namo
भगवते वासुदेवाय
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Shaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudidaya Nastaprayesu Bhadresu Nityam Bhakti Sevaya Bhagavati Tamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Thakur Premanandi So we're on verse number 52. Yadate moha kalilam
यदते मोहकालिकं
budhir vyatitarishyati
बुद्धिर्व्यतीतस्यति
tadagantasi nirvedan
तथागतस्ति निर्वेदं
shrutavyasya shrutasya cha
श्रोतव्यस्य श्रुतस्य च
Yadate moha kalilam
यदा ते मोहकलिलं
budhir vyatitarishyati
बुद्धिर्व्यतीतरिष्यति
tadagantasi nirvedan
तदन्तस्य निर्वेदं
shrutavyasya shrutasya cha
श्रोतव्यस्य श्रुतस्य च
Yadate moha kalilam
यदते मोहकलिलं
budhir vyatitarishyati
बुद्धिर्व्यतीतरिष्यति
tadagantasi nirvedam
तदागन्तस्य निर्वेदं
Shrutavyasya shrutasya cha.
श्रोतव्यस्य श्रुतस्य च You want to read that with
You
you?
want to chant the Sanskrit?
Yeah. You can read this? Yeah. Okay, Advitya, शुरू करो. Okay, पापा से बोलो. यदा ते मोह किल
Kalilam.
कलिलं. वही अद्वितीय ये पढ़ो. ये पढ़ो. यदा ते मोह. अगस्त से पढ़ो.
यदा ते मोहकालिलं बुद्धिर्व्यतितरिष्यति तदा गन्तासि निर्वेदं श्रोतव्यस्य श्रुतस्य च.
Good. Anybody else?
यदा ते मोहकलिलं बुद्धिर्व्यतितरिष्यति तदा गन्तस्य निर्वेदं श्रोतव्यस्य श्रुतस्य च.
Yada.
यदा
When.
when
Re. Te. I'm sorry. Te.
ते
Your. Moha.
मोह
Of illusion.
illusion
Kalilam.
कलिलं
Dense forest.
dense forest
Budhi.
बुद्धि
Transcendental service.
transcendental service
With intelligence.
with intelligence
Vyatitarishyati.
बुद्धिर्स्थिरिस्
Surpasses.
surpasses
Sada.
तदा
At that time.
at that time
Ganta asi.
गन्तस्य
You shall go.
you shall go
Nirvedam.
निर्वेदं
callousness,
carelessness,
shrotavyasya,
shrotavyasya,
toward all that is to be heard,
towards all that is to be heard,
shrutasya,
shrutasya,
all that is already heard,
all that's already heard,
cha,
cha,
also.
also.
Translation. When your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. Please repeat. When your intelligence
When your intelligence
has passed out
has passed out
of the dense forest
of dense forest
of delusion,
of delusion,
you shall become indifferent
you shall become indifferent
to all that has been heard
to all that has been heard
and all that is to be heard.
and all that is to be heard.
Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Who wants to read the purport? I guess it's Augustine then.
Okay, turn this side. Yeah, you cannot put there. Now,
There are many good examples in the lives of the great devotees of the Lord, of those who became indifferent to the rituals of the Vedas simply by devotional service to the Lord. When a person factually understands Krishna and his relationship with Krishna, he naturally becomes completely indifferent to the rituals of fruitive activities, even though an experienced Brahmana, Sri Madhavendra Puri, a great devotee and acharya in the line of the devotees, says, Sandhya Vandana Badram Astu Bhavato Bhoho Snana Tubhyam Namo Bho Deva Pitarascha Tarpana Vidau Maham Shama Kshamyatam Yatra Kvapi Nishadya Yadava Guru Tamasya Kamsa Dvisha Smaram Smaram Agham Harami Tad Alam Manye Kim Anyena Me. O my prayers 3 times a day, all glory to you. O bathing, I offer my obeisances unto you. O demigods, O forefathers, please excuse me for my inability to offer you my respects. Now wherever I sit, I can remember the great descendant of the Yadu dynasty, Krishna, the enemy of Kamsa, and thereby I can free myself from all sinful bondage. I think this is sufficient for me. The Vedic rites and rituals are imperative for neophytes, comprehending all kinds of prayer 3 times a day, taking a bath early in the morning, offering respects to the forefather, etc. But when one is fully in Krishna consciousness and is engaged in his transcendental loving service, one becomes indifferent to all these regulative principles because he has already attained perfection. If one can reach a platform of understanding by service to the Supreme Lord Krishna, he has no longer to execute different types of penances and sacrifices as recommended in revealed scriptures. And similarly, if one has not understood that the purpose of the Vedas is to reach Krishna and simply engages in the rituals, etc., then he is uselessly wasting time in such engagements. Persons in Krishna consciousness transcend the limit of Sabda Brahma, or the range of the Vedas and Upanishads.
Okay.
कोई नया हुआ था
All right, so this is actually a very important verse and purport. In other words, it's saying, if one has not understood that the purpose of the Vedas is to reach Krishna and simply engages in the rituals, etc., then he is uselessly wasting time in such engagements. Persons in Krishna consciousness transcend the limit of Sabda Brahma, or the range of the Vedas and the Upanishads. So, what do do you think most people go to temples, Hindu temples all over the place around the world? Do they understand that the purpose of the Vedas is to reach Krishna?
No, it's just ritual probably. You just go there, pay your respects and come back.
It's for material benefit. I think it's for them.
Okay, you want to say something?
I think most of them go because it's more of an habit, you know. They have no understanding. Most, at least I think, because you just do it because you've been doing it. Your parents are doing it. So actually, the way we are being educated, nobody goes and gets educated like that because very few people would do that. I think it's more of an habit. So everybody's going, so let's do it.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. Well, here it says, if one has not understood that the purpose of the Vedas is to reach Krishna and simply engages in the rituals, etc., then he is uselessly wasting time in such engagements. That's a pretty serious statement. Wasting time. You know, that's like serious. Okay, now if we look at the third chapter, verse 26. Okay, so it says, you want to read?
326.
Yes, 326.
A person in translation also,
Just, yeah,
as the ignorant, so as to not disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness. Vedeshta Sarvai Aham Eva Vedyam. That is the end of all Vedic rituals.
okay, what does that mean?
From Ved, am to be known? Is that
Yes.
what? Okay.
In other words, the purpose of the Vedas is to know Krishna. The purpose of the Vedic knowledge is to know Krishna. That's 15th chapter, 15th verse.
All rituals, all performances of sacrifices and everything that is put into the Vedas, including all direction for material activities, are meant for understanding Krishna, who is the ultimate goal of life. But because the conditioned souls do not know anything beyond sense gratification, they study the Vedas to that end.
In other words, they're studying the Vedas for sense gratification, to improve their sense gratification.
But
What does it mean by improving sense gratification? It means eating, sleeping, mating, defending. And then they think, well, also the Vedas are promising me that if I live like this, then I'll go to Swarga, and then there's even better, more sense gratification.
But through fruitive activities and sense gratification regulated by the Vedic rituals, one is gradually elevated to Krishna consciousness. Therefore, realized soul in Krishna consciousness should not disturb others in their activities or understanding, but he should act by showing how the results of all work can be dedicated to the service of Krishna. The learned Krishna conscious person may act in such a way that the ignorant person working for sense gratification may learn how to act and how to behave. Although the ignorant man is not to be disturbed in his activities, a slightly developed Krishna conscious person may directly be engaged in the service of the Lord without waiting for other Vedic formulas. For this fortunate man, there is no need to follow the Vedic rituals, because by direct Krishna consciousness one can have all the results one would otherwise derive from following one's prescribed duties.
Okay, so this is a pretty good supplement to what we just read in second chapter, 52nd verse. Okay, so the Vedas are teaching people to regulate their sense gratification so that they can be elevated gradually to Krishna consciousness. That's an important point. So we can see that whenever we talk about Krishna consciousness, we're talking about regulated life, regulated eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, according to the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. Without regulation of one's daily habits, it's almost impossible to make any spiritual advancement. And if one practices the art of work, that is, how to do all the normal activities of life for the pleasure of Krishna, then they do not have to take part in all the different ritual activities that are usually done in other temples. Why? Because the goal of all Vedic knowledge and rituals is to understand Krishna. So if you understand Krishna and always stay engaged in his service in a regulated way, then you don't have to do the different types of ritual activities. The purpose of them is to understand Krishna. So if you understand Krishna and are engaged in Krishna's service, and that's the whole point, being engaged in Krishna's service. Therefore, it says that without devotional service, one cannot really understand Krishna. So if we take a look at 11th chapter, 53rd verse, 54th verse, Bhaktya Tvananyaya Sakya Ham Eva Vidurijana Yatam Dastam Tatpena Palestam Cha Parantapa. My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. So, at a certain point, one has to realize that the rituals enjoined in the Rig, Rig and Samaveda are meant for gradual elevation to Krishna consciousness. But if you are Krishna conscious, you understand Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I am his eternal servant, and it's only by bhakti that I can understand him, and bhakti but under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual masters, then you don't have to follow all those rituals. You've understood your constitutional position as the eternal servant of Krishna, and you're actually practically engaging in the service of Krishna. So, let's look at the purport to 1154. Who would like to read? Okay, go ahead.
Krishna can be understood only by the process of undivided devotional service. He explicitly explains this in this verse so that unauthorized commentators who try to understand Bhagavad Gita by the speculative process will know that they are simply wasting their time. No one can understand Krishna or how he came from parents in a four-handed form and at once changed himself into a two-handed form. These things are very difficult to understand by study of the Vedas or by philosophical speculation. Therefore, it is clearly stated here that no one can see him or enter into understanding of these matters. Those who, however...
Stop a second. Does everyone know how, when Krishna appeared in front of his parents, Vasudeva and Devaki, in baby form, the baby had 4 arms and had all the opulences of Narayana. So, And then Mother Yasoda I explained this before, but I'll explain it again. Then Mother Yasoda became very anxious. She thought, oh my God, if Kamsa comes and sees this baby with 4 arms, he'll know it's God, and he'll kill him. So she prayed, please, please, change your form to look like an ordinary child. Maybe he'll get confused and not kill the child. Right. So you can see how Mother Yasoda thinks that the 2-armed form of Krishna is not God. It's only the 4-armed form of Narayana that's God. So this is an example of Yoga Maya. She's put into illusion so that she can come close to Krishna. And she thinks that Kamsa might get confused by seeing a little 2-armed baby and spare it by thinking, oh, this is not God. So that's why he says, no one can understand Krishna or how he came from parents in a 4-handed form and at once changed himself into a 2-handed form. These things are very difficult to understand by study of the Vedas or by philosophical speculation. Well, let's say you never heard anything about Krishna and you read a book about Indian religion and you see that this baby appeared with 4 arms and then it switched to 2 arms. So you would say, well, what the heck is this? This doesn't sound right to me. No one's ever seen a baby with 4 arms. You see, so they wouldn't be able to understand. They think it's all just fantasy. But it's not. There's a mystery about it. These things are very difficult to understand by study of the Vedas or by philosophical speculation. Yeah, if you try and speculate, why did the baby appear with 4 arms? And then why did the baby change to 2 arms? And who believes that anyway? Who ever heard of a baby with 4 arms? You ever hear of a baby with 4 arms? No. So, you can't philosophically speculate about it. You just think it's just a fantasy. But yet there's a lot of philosophy behind it. What's the philosophy behind it? Let's discuss that.
Narayana's 400 form, Vishnu's 400 form. That's why he shows them that he's the Supreme Personality. Since he asks him to change to a baby, then he obliges. He appear like a non-ordinary child.
Okay, so if we look at another paragraph here, let's jump to the 3rd paragraph. The personal form of Krishna.
Personal forms of Krishna, the 2-handed form and the 4-handed are described as 2 Durdarshan. Are very difficult to see.
Wait a minute. Are completely different from the temporary universal form. Where are you reading from? Did you make a mistake?
Krishna changes from universal form to 400 form. Is that the
The personal forms of Krishna, the 2-handed form and the 4-handed, are completely different from the temporary universal form shown to Arjuna.
Same thing.
Yeah, so read there.
The 400 form of Narayana and the 200 form of Krishna are eternal and transcendental, whereas the universal form exhibited to Arjuna is temporary. The words Tvad Anyena Na Drishta Purvam, text 47, state that before Arjuna no one had seen that universal form.
Okay, where are you reading from again?
Same thing, continuing that. Person from that same paragraph.
Okay, let me read it and then you see if you're reading the same thing. The personal forms of Krishna, the 2-handed form and the 4-handed, are completely different from the temporary universal form shown to Arjuna. The 4-handed form of Narayana and the 2-handed form of Krishna are eternal and transcendental, whereas the universal form exhibited to Arjuna is temporary. The very word, Sudurdarsham, meaning difficult to see, suggests that no one had seen that universal form. It also suggests that amongst the devotees there was no necessity of showing it. That form was exhibited by Krishna at the request of Arjuna, so that in the future, when one represents himself as an incarnation of God, people can ask to see his universal form. Well, okay, if you knew nothing, and you just read Bhagavad Gita, and you see that there's such a thing as a universal form that contains everything, past, present, and future, and then there's a four-armed form, and then there's a two-armed form, and Arjuna's asking Krishna, show me your universal form. Then he's saying, I'm getting confused by watching it and seeing it, it's scaring me. Show me your four-armed form. And then he said, but actually I want to see your two-armed form because it's the most beautiful. So a person would look at that and say, hey, this is all fantasy. This is whoever heard of these things, right? Unimaginable. You see. So therefore you can't really use philosophical speculation to understand this. Because it's inconceivable for normal people. And then later on, again, he's talking about these expansions of the Lord. He says, Krishna changes from the universal form to the four-handed form of Narayana, and then to his own natural form of two hands. This indicates that the four-handed forms and the other forms mentioned in the Vedic literature are all emanations of the original two-handed Krishna. So now wait a minute. It says this indicates. Is that clear to everyone?
No.
Huh?
No.
So you see, for a normal person, they would not be able to understand this. It sounds like gibberish.
Even the devotees.
Even the devotees, yeah.
They just said that Narayana form is supreme and Krishna comes from him.
Yes.
So they get
Yeah. So it says, he is the origin of all emanations. Krishna is distinct even from these forms. Meaning he's different even from Narayana or the universal form. What to speak of the impersonal conception? What to speak of his Brahma Jyoti effulgence? As far as the four-handed forms of Krishna are concerned, it is stated clearly that even the most identical four-handed form of Krishna, which is known as Mahavishnu, who is lying on the cosmic ocean and from whose breathing so many innumerable universes are passing out and entering, is also an expansion of the Supreme Lord, as stated in Brahma Samhita. So now he's talking about something else. He's talking about the Vishnu expansions of Krishna, and Mahavishnu, who, when he breathes, whole universes are emanating, as the molecules of his breath. And when he inhales, they're reabsorbed into his body. I mean, who can imagine such things? Obviously, you can imagine how big Mahavishnu must be, because every molecule of his breath represents an entire universe, and there's millions of them, right? So, unless one is a devotee, there would not be any possibility of understanding this. It just sounds too strange. Right? So then it says, from Mahavishnu, into whom all innumerable universes enter, and from whom they come forth again, simply by his breathing process, is a plenary expansion of Krishna. This is why I say that the so-called black holes imagined by Stephen Hawking and other scientists, they're actually talking about Mahavishnu, because he's emanating universes from his breathing and he's absorbing them back again, right? But because they don't want to admit that God is a person, they talk about a black hole. Therefore, I worship Govinda Krishna, the cause of all causes. Therefore, one should conclusively worship the personal form of Krishna as the supreme personality Godhead who has eternal bliss and knowledge. He is the source of all forms of Vishnu. He is the source of all forms of incarnation, and he's the original supreme personality, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Right, so therefore, if we still simply follow rituals and don't understand that Krishna is the origin of everything, then it's considered a waste of time. Although most people say, wait a minute, this is, our ancestors have been doing this and we should be doing it and blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't lead to anything because the whole purpose of the Vedic knowledge is to understand Krishna. So you could say that, maybe, I don't know, over 90% of Hindus are wasting their time. Just doing rituals without understanding what the purpose behind it is. Now, if you read Bhagavad Gita, it clearly says what the purpose is. It's to understand Krishna. Okay. All right, now here it says, last line of purport of 2nd chapter, 52nd verse. It says, persons in Krishna consciousness transcend the limit of Sabda Brahma, or the range of the Vedas and Upanishads. Now, what does that mean?
Very powerful statement.
Huh?
Very powerful statement.
Anyone want to venture a guess what that means?
252.
252, the last slide. This is the verse we're doing today, 2nd chapter, 52nd verse. But we went to the 3rd chapter, 26th verse, and the 11th chapter, 54th verse to get a little more perspective of what's being said in this purport.
Can you repeat the question?
What?
Last
What?
line का meaning क्या है? 252 verse.
So, meaning,
Sabda Brahma.
if you read Vedas and everything, you will still not understand Krishna. But if you understand Krishna, then you don't need to read Vedas and Upanishads. Maybe.
Well,
Nonsense.
see, Sabda Brahma means that what is spoken by what?
By Brahma himself, the Brahma Samhita, the first words.
No. Sabda Brahma is,
Shruti?
yes, what's spoken by Krishna, basically. The Vedas and the Upanishads, right? So, transcending the limit of Sabda Brahma. See, now, anything that's, let's say, written down can be, let's say, under the influence of the modes of material nature. Because it's written down on paper, you write it with ink, and it can be subject to influence by the modes of material nature. So, therefore, when it says, persons in Krishna consciousness transcend the limit of Sabda Brahma, that means that they're no longer subject to the modes of material nature. Like for example, you're hearing me speak right now. So these sounds that are coming from my mouth, they're actually, in this material atmosphere, right? So they can be influenced by the modes of material nature. However, a person who is always engaged in Krishna consciousness transcends the limitation of the influence of the modes of material nature. How do we know that? 14th chapter, 26th verse. It says, yeah. Chayo vibhicharina bhakti yogina sevate saganam samatityayita mam chayo. Yeah. Saganam samatityayita brahmavuyayita. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature, and thus comes to the level of pure devotional service. They're no longer influenced by the modes of material nature. So therefore they've gone beyond the range of the Vedas, the transcendental. So why does it say that? Because the purpose of the Vedas is to know Krishna. If you know Krishna, then you engage in a service. As it says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. 10th chapter, 8th verse says, Krishna says, I am the source of everything material and spiritual. Those who know this engage in my service. So once you know Krishna, then you know that my constitutional position is to serve the Lord. And that nothing is independent of the Lord. Everything is connected to Him. And therefore I should use everything in His service. At that point, by actually engaging in the service full time, you've transcended the limitation of the modes of material nature. You're no longer influenced by them. Right? So, therefore, there's no need to perform fruitive activity or Vedic rituals for material advancement. The devotee rises above it. Now this is explained here in the Bhagavad Gita, where it says, we've already read these verses, but now you see it's emphasizing this in more and more ways. It says, second chapter, 45th verse, Bhogaisvaya prasaktanam tayapārata chetasam. I'm sorry. Chaigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunya Bhavarjana. Second chapter, 45th verse. Nirdvandva Nityasattvasto Niryogasya Atama. Krishna speaking to Arjuna says, the Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature. O Arjuna, become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety.
Wait, 2.45?
245. And be established in the self. So he's saying that, look, Arjuna, rise above the Vedas. Right? The Vedas are dealing mainly with the three modes of material nature. So they talk about the Varnashram system. What's the Varnashram system? It's duties performed according to our psychophysical makeup. Now, I'm going to explain something that's very important, and listen carefully to this. Most people think, most pundits think in India, that once you're born with your karma from a previous life. So, you should act according to your karma. If you're born in a Sudra family, you should be a Sudra. If you're born in a Brahmana family, you should be a Brahmana. There's a reason why you were born in that family. There's a reason why you are introduced right from the beginning to either Sudra life, or Brahmana life, or Vaishya life, or whatever. Krishna consciousness is different. Krishna consciousness says that more important than your previous life is what happens in this life. So we have an example, Narada Muni. He's born in a Sudra family, right? Doesn't even know who his father is. However, and his mother's a maidservant, right? However, because of his association with pure devotees, he becomes purified. And then he becomes, in his next life, he becomes the greatest saint in the history of the world. And through that whole life, he lived very saintly. No education, other than his association when he was 5 years old with those Bhakti Vedantas. So we see that in Vaishnavism, what you do in this life is most important. Even though you might be born in a Sudra family or a Malecha family, like Haridas Thakur is born in a Yavana family, right? A Muslim family. But yet, he became Namacharya because of his association with pure devotees. I said. However, traditional Hindu priests will say, look, when you were born in a Sudra family, you should stick to your adhikar, right? your nature. And if you're born in a Brahmana family, you should stick to your Brahmana family. This is your destiny, right? And if you're born in a Vaishya family, you should stick to your destiny. Whereas in Vaishnavism, pure Vaishnavism, or we understand that devotional service is not regulated by the laws of karma. Therefore, what you do in this life is more important than what you did in the previous life. And get trained. Then whatever guna and karma you were born into. Right? It's like I was born into a Yavana family. Right? So traditionally Hindu priests would say, well, you're born in a Yavana family, you can't become a Brahmana. In fact, I told that story one time. I did a program in the house of a Nepali gentleman who used to come to our temple all the time. I haven't seen him for years, though. And he invited me to do a ceremony in his house. And he invited his friends. So after the ceremony, one Nepali guy came up to me and said, you did a pretty good job. You did pretty good. But you can't really be a Brahmin. I said, really? Why not? He said, because you're not born in Brahmin family. Right to my face, he told me that. So I realized, it's no use arguing with him, So, see, that's the traditional point of view that, whatever you're born into, that's it. You can't change. But that's not the Vaishnava way. That's not what the Vedas say either. Vedas say guna karma, they don't say janma karma. But in a more important sense, it's what you do now in this life that's important. So you can see Narada Muni, Haridas Thakur, all these people, they were born into very low families, but they became the top devotees because of their association with pure devotees. So we see that there are many misconceptions in modern practice of Hinduism. Many misconceptions. And because of that, that doesn't stop Hindus from becoming very pious people. It doesn't stop being a Muslim and being very pious also, or a Christian and being very pious. But will they actually become a pure devotee? Almost impossible. Almost. Everything is possible, but it's almost impossible. Because they will not have the proper training. Any misconception is an obstacle to making advancement in Krishna consciousness. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, Nistraigunya Bhavarjuna. That means, if you look at the Sanskrit, Nistraigunya means you become transcendental, Arjuna, to the three modes of material nature. But first he says, Traigunya Vishaya Veda. The Vedas deal mainly with the three modes of material nature. You rise above them. Now, why did Narada Muni instruct Vyasadeva? Well, Vyasadeva was frustrated. He had translated so many Vedas, but he was frustrated. And he didn't know why. And Narada Muni said, because although you wrote so many Vedas, you spent most of your time on Varnashram Dharma and not enough time on Krishna. Therefore, anyone who reads all those things you wrote, then it's not clear in their mind that Krishna is the goal and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You gave so much emphasis to the Varnas and the Ashramas that they think just following that is the goal. But just following that without understanding that Krishna is the ultimate goal of all that study and practice means that they will not succeed. So he said, now you write the Bhagavatam and make it very clear that Krishna is the goal. Vedaischa sarve aham eva vedya, or Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So you see, even someone like Vyasadeva was literary incarnation of the Lord. He's a Shaktavashavatar empowered by the Lord. Even he can maybe go off track a little bit, right? And he needed the instruction of his guru, Narada Muni, to understand why he was feeling frustrated, even after writing all those Vedas. And then Narada Muni told him clearly, look, you spent too much time on Varnashram Dharma. You didn't spend enough time on Krishna. Therefore, anyone who reads everything you wrote, they're still not clear in their mind what is the goal. And that's why Prabhupada gave us Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, because there's no mistaking who Krishna is, what the purpose of life is, how to attain it. There's no mistaking. Whereas if you read Rig Veda and Samaveda, Yajurveda, Atharva Veda, it's still not clear. I mean, there's a lot of information there, but it's still not clear. What is the real purpose of life? You read the Upanishads, they don't even mention the name of Krishna. They talk about God, but they don't mention the name of Krishna. So, although it's philosophical, it's very nice in many ways, but still, there's still confusion about what is the goal. So here it says, when your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. So this is a big statement. What is this dense forest of delusion? Well, later on it'll explain it. It's the inverted banyan tree in the material world. So it's a banyan tree where the roots are upward and the branches are downward. So you'll never find, and the roots and the branches and the leaves, you can just go from one branch to another, you'll never find the root. Because it's not downward, it's upward. So it's an inverted vision of the spiritual world, and inverted and perverted also. So it's just like seeing the reflection of the moon on a river. So a river is flowing, right? And it has little waves in it. So if you look at the reflection on the moon on the river, it looks like it's moving, and it's shaking. But if you look at the moon, you see, wait a minute, it's not moving. So when we try and figure out who we are in relationship to the relative material world, we never actually find out who we are. It's very confusing. So here it's saying, when your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion. So what is that dense forest of delusion? Well, the example is the internet. Let's say you go on the internet to look up how many tusks does an elephant have? So you go on Google or Yahoo and write, how many tusks does an elephant have? So then, right away it shows, there's elephants in Africa and they only have 2 tusks. But then you see a little advertisement, you can get a new cell phone for only $2. What? And so you go to that. So now you went from 2-tusked elephant to an iPhone for $2, right? Does that happen? Yeah. So then, now you're looking at how to get that iPhone for $2, and then you see something else, and now you go to something else, then you go to something else, then you go to something else, and now you spent 4 or 5 hours on the internet, and you went there just to find out how many tusks does an elephant have. You see, even though you got the answer right away, but you went from one thing to another and spent 4 hours looking at it, looking at the internet. So that's called the dense forest of delusion. See, where your mind keeps going from one thing to another, and in the end, you spend all this time, and basically you wasted your time. So therefore, somebody who's Krishna conscious, whose intelligence has passed out, who's no longer duped by the dense forest of delusion, they become indifferent to everything that has been heard and all that is to be heard. That means that they're not interested in nonsense. They're not interested in politics, they're not interested in sports, they're not interested in the stock market, they're not interested in, who won this election or that election, who won this game, that game, which stock went up, which stocks went down. They're not interested in, how's my 401k doing? They're not interested in this, that. They just lose interest in all those things, and they just keep their mind focused on Krishna. Now that is called samadhi. But it's a working samadhi. In other words, you can still do all your duties in life, but you're no longer wasting any time with diversions to mundane things. You're just staying focused. You go to work, you have to do certain things, you get it done. But the whole reason you're getting it done, and very expertly, is so that you have time to learn more about Krishna and do service for Krishna. The way you learn is by doing service, because it says Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Ganayat Yasuvara Gyanam Chayada Haitukam, that one who engages in devotional service, unflinchingly, knowledge and renunciation follow as a natural sequence. You don't have to independently try and cultivate knowledge and renunciation. It just happen naturally. It's a natural sequence. Okay, so this verse today emphasizes that if one has not understood that the purpose of the Vedas is to reach Krishna and simply engages in the rituals, etc., then he is uselessly wasting time in such engagements. Persons in Krishna consciousness transcend this limit of Sabda Brahma, or the range of the Vedas and the Upanishads. So, in other words, Krishna is transcendental to the Vedas and the Upanishads. Transcendental means that the Vedas and the Upanishads are dealing with the three modes of material nature. In other words, when you say Varnashrama tells you the duties of Brahmanas, the duties of Vaishyas, of Kshatriyas, the duties of Vaishyas, the duties of Sudras. However, when we read Bhagavad Gita, we see that when Arjuna is arguing with Krishna why he shouldn't fight, based on moral and ethical principles that are also instructed in the Vedas, Krishna rejects his arguments. Why? Because following Krishna's order is transcendental even to the Vedas. Following Krishna's order strictly makes you transcendental. And this is a major theme in the Bhagavad Gita. Now, we've already studied it in the previous verses where it says, text 51, Karmajam Buddhiyuktahi Phalam Kyatva Manisanha Janma Bandha Vimurmukta Padam Gajanti Anamayam. This is what we studied last week. It says, by thus engaging in devotional service to the Lord, great sages or devotees free themselves from the results of work in the material world. In this way, they become free from the cycle of birth and death and attain the state beyond all miseries by going back to Godhead. So, now in that purport that we read last week, if we look down a little bit, you'll see. But one who understands his constitutional position as the eternal servant of the Lord, point 1, and thus knows the position of the personality of Godhead, point 2, engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, point 3. That means one has understood Bhagavad Gita. That means one is no longer subject to the laws of karma, either previous karma or present karma, because he understands these 3 points. Position of the personality of Godhead as transcendental to the modes of material nature, as the source of everything, and nothing is independent of him. Then he went to planets where there is neither material, miserable life, nor the influence of time and death. To know one's position means to know also the sublime position of the Lord. One who wrongly thinks that the living entity's position and the Lord's position are on the same level is to be understood to be in darkness, and therefore unable to engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. He becomes the Lord himself and thus paves the way for the repetition of birth and himself to the service of the Lord, at once becomes eligible for Vaikuntha. Service for the cause of the Lord is called Karma Yoga or Buddha Yoga, or in plain words, devotional service to the Lord. So, this is the summary, basically, of the whole Bhagavad Gita, what we just read. Are way, or from different points of view, but this is the crux of the whole Bhagavad Gita. And therefore, we see the 30th verse. Third chapter, 30th verse explains the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. And third chapter, 31st verse explains all Vedic wisdom. Well, what does it mean? Essence of all Vedic wisdom. Eternally true. That was true in the past, true in the present, true in the future. Okay. So, if we look at what this says, verse 30 is the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. It indicates the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. So it says, "All your work with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, and with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight." This verse clearly indicates the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord instructs that one has to become fully Krishna conscious to discharge duties, as if such an injunction may make the constitutional position of a living entity. The living entity cannot be happy independent of the cooperation of the Supreme Lord, because the eternal constitutional position of the living entity is to become subordinate to the desires of the Lord. Now, here we see the difference between material life and spiritual life. Material life, we follow our whimsical desires. We work to accomplish our whimsical desires. Spiritual life, we submit the desires of the Lord, and therefore our constant instructions of the Lord. Now, everybody's following instructions. That's the constitutional position of everyone. Your kids' instructions. Kids are giving kids younger than themselves instructions, right? Owners of businesses are giving instructions to their employees. The government is giving instructions to the citizens. If you join the army, the sergeant in charge is giving you instructions all the time. You know, everyone's taking instructions from some type of superior. That's a constitutional position. Yes.
Who gives instructions to the government?
Instruction. A more powerful government. Trump told Turkey, you free the Christian preacher that you put in jail. Otherwise, we'll ruin your economy. Turkey said, hey, we don't have to listen to what you say. I said, oh, you don't have to listen. 1 month later, or 2 months later, they freed that guy. Why? So forth. Almost ruined the entire economy. They liberated that guy. We don't have to listen to you. Who are you? We arrested this guy because he's a traitor or whatever they said. And they just made up some accusation against him, right? Fine, you don't want to listen to what we say. So they, he made some phone, and then certain things happened because, the United States has, the lira went down, the stock market went down, prices came back to the United States. So you see, who gives dictation to the government? A bigger government, a more powerful government.
Who gives dictation to that more powerful government then?
Okay, if that more powerful government is not following the principles of Krishna, then Krishna sends earthquakes, he sends tsunamis, he sends diseases, he sends. Or if you've ever heard of the 10 plagues of Egypt, have you heard of that? Huh?
I heard of it.
You've heard of it,
Yeah.
but you don't know what it is.
Yeah, in second grade I was doing some report about Egypt and I remember there was something about 10 plagues of Egypt.
And you heard, what did you hear? So,
I don't know. God told.
I
I don't heard anything.
No, God told Egypt. God sent 10 plagues. I think one was a fox, lion, and then at the end, he told the people he wanted to save to put the blood of a lamb on their door because he said that he was gonna kill all the kids, except for
all the firstborn.
yeah.
Yeah, so God went around killing kids. Some sign on their door. Does that sound like Krishna?
No.
Some other God, right? Yes.
Does the government get 1/6 of karma for all the bad actions the people do?
If they mislead them, yeah. Yeah. If they pass a law and they say meat eating is good. So they get. So the more meat the people eat, the more reactions the government gets.
Well, the government gets a lot of reactions.
Huh?
So the government gets a lot of reactions.
Yeah.
How much reaction Hitler got?
Hitler failed completely. He was explains the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. And 331 explains the essence of all Vedic wisdom. What does it say? Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions or my rules and who follow this teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. In other words, become free from karma. These two verses summarize the purpose of Bhagavad Gita and the essence of all Vedic wisdom. What is the essence of all Vedic wisdom? Arjuna did, and look what happened to Arjuna. He became completely successful. Whereas he was actually destined to fail, but he became completely successful. So,
Which two verses?
331.
what?
3.30 and 3.31.
330 and 331.
The essence of what?
The essence of all Vedic wisdom. So, are your teachers teaching you in school the essence of all Vedic wisdom?
No.
Are they teaching you how to become free of your previous karma and karma in general, even in this life?
Teaching you how to get
Yeah, exactly. Are they teaching you how to go back to the spiritual world?
No.
They're teaching you how to stay in the material world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, now, to anything. Then you could say ignorance is bliss. Right? Just like if someone tells you It makes your hair more shiny when you smoke. You say, oh yeah, I'm going to smoke a lot. I want my hair to be nice and shiny.
Well, even science says that even smoking's bad, so we should smoke.
Don't. Science can say anything. They can go both ways. It depends who pays them.
Yeah, but normally people follow science. Normally people tell scientists make a video theory that the moon's in the squares. Then everybody will believe that.
No, the science can go, whoever pays the most money, that's the way science goes. Like, for example, scientists and doctors said hormone replacement therapy for women is good. So for 40, 50 years, I'll give you an example. Radha Neela Madhav, about 12 years or 15 years ago, she came up to me and said, Prabhu, doctor told me to take this hormone replacement therapy, and I've been taking it, but I don't know if it's right or wrong, she said. I definitely don't feel good taking this medicine. So I said, Prabhu, immediately stop. But the doctor said I should take this. I said, immediately stop. It's complete nonsense. It doesn't really help you, and it causes cancer. So, what? Why? I can't believe that. I mean, the doctor's a doctor. I said, just trust me. Just stop immediately, because you'll get cancer by taking it. Right. Then 5 years later, the FDA said, don't take hormone replacement therapy. It causes cancer. But 5 years later, right? And now women, are confused. What do I do in menopause? They're not sure what they should do anymore, because they before the doctors were telling them, I got to take this, and they were all taking it. Right. So you see, the doctors and the scientists, they'll say whatever someone pays them to say. If they pay them enough money, they'll say it. And then after about 10, 20, 30, 40 years, they say, oh, no, don't do that, it's bad for you. So, huh? Yeah. Just like in India, they said, 60 years ago, they said, don't eat ghee, eat dalda. Ghee gives you a heart attack. Now everyone believed it, right? Now they say, don't eat dalda, it gives you a heart attack, eat ghee. So, why should we reinvent the wheel? The wheel was already invented many years ago, right? We don't have to reinvent the wheel in every generation. I mean, for thousands of years, people have been eating ghee. You read the Vedas, they glorify ghee. They glorify cow's milk, And then all of a sudden they say, no, don't, dalda is good for you. Dalda is nonsense. It causes so many diseases, right? So many sicknesses. So you pay people enough, you pay scientists enough, they'll write you a whole, scientific paper how taking dalda is good for you. And they'll cite 15, 20, 100, research supporting. You see.
It's not even true.
That's why in English we say money talks. Money talks. Okay. So here, we see how the main themes of the whole Bhagavad Gita are in the second chapter. Second chapter is the summary of the whole Bhagavad Gita. But then, after the second chapter, they're going to give more and more information in the subsequent chapters supporting these themes and building up on them more and more. Okay. So the answer to your question was, the 10 plagues of Egypt. You said, well, who orders the dominant government that all the governments listen to? It's Krishna. He can send them the 10 plagues of Egypt, until they're completely decimated, and then they surrender. Okay. Like, for example, Mount St. Helens. It exploded in 1984. 1980? Okay. It exploded. It blew ash all over the state of Washington and Oregon and Northern California. You know, it was like terrible, right? That's one mountain. But the effect of that explosion was felt all over the world. You know, it sent clouds of this ash all over the place. Now, look in Japan, the nuclear reactor, Fuji something, right? It heated up and then, you know, there was like a tsunami or something, and it damaged it. And the debris from it has come all the way on the coast of California and the West Coast. The debris and the reaction, you know, the radioactivity and so forth. Chernobyl, an entire nuclear plant exploded in Chernobyl in Ukraine. And the effect of it went all over Europe, and it's still not cleaned up. It's still dangerous, you know, the effect of that, where a nuclear reactor exploded. Right? So you see, these things are not controlled by human beings. They're out of their control. There's natural cataclysmic things, and then there's mistakes made by human beings. It causes disasters, even though they think they're controlling it. Okay. So now we see one who understands his real constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Lord, who knows the position of the personality Godhead, engages himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So this is the conclusion. What am I going to do in this life? Am I going to waste my life simply in doing mundane things? Or can I learn what the purpose of life is early on in my life and learn this art of work? Okay, now who can explain the art of work? This is explained in the Buddhi Yukto Jahatiya Ube Sukkate Duskute Tasmat Yoga Yujasva Yoga Karma Sukoshalam. That's the previous verse, 520. Who can explain the art of work, Sanskriti?
You work for so that
Okay, but we had a much more elaborate explanation of it. The art of work. Anyone else want to say yes, Krishna?
Is the art of work
What you said is not wrong, but there's a lot more to explain.
something you
Yes,
earn money for?
yes.
What is it?
Okay, this is Shrestha Apala Batula's home art of work. Yeah.
So basically connecting to Krishna, every act we do, we sleep, we offer everything in service of Krishna. The same work of karma will become an act in Krishna consciousness. Will make us transcendental knowledge. Everything will be transcendentally situated. Then every action will be pleasing only for Krishna's senses alone. Yet
Okay, that's the key. That is doing the ordinary things. So this is Shrestha's homework. She gave it on the December 30th, 2018. She said, a person who is always engaged in pure devotional service, working for Krishna, will get rid of the bad and good reactions in his or her lifetime and is liberated from the cycle of birth and death. Whereas a person who works for satisfying his senses gets entrapped in this vicious cycle of repeated birth and death. Krishna describes this pure devotional service, working for Krishna, as the art of work in Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, 50th verse. Right? A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad reactions, even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, which is the art of all work. The purpose of Buddhi Yoga, or the art of work, is to understand that Krishna is the proprietor of this entire material and spiritual existence, and it is our duty to serve him. Rented out this body that we have, which has highly evolved instruments like the senses, mind, and the intelligence. If one uses it carefully in his service, one will be self-realized. However, if we begin to believe that the purpose of this body is for sense gratification, we become a victim of our own ignorance. We will waste the human birth with these highly evolved instruments that Krishna has provided by engaging them in sense gratification like animals, and destroy our path to our destiny, eternal destiny. We need to understand that the material nature is the energy in the service of Krishna and not for sense gratification. If we learn this under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master and transform everything material into spiritual reality, at that point our life becomes successful. The art of reorienting daily activities that we perform day to day for pleasing Krishna can be learned by coming to the temple. At the temple we see the beautiful form of the deities. We fix our mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. We use our head to offer obeisances to Krishna. We smell the flowers offered to Krishna. We touch the lotus feet of the Lord. We hear the kirtan of the Lord. Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. We dance for Krishna's in Krishna's kirtan. We use our arms to make garlands. We clean the dishes. We eat the Krishna prasadam, and we talk about Krishna's pastime and his pure devotees. We can extend this to our daily activities outside the temple. Sleep. To wake up early to serve the deity in the house and chant. In other words, you take rest early to wake up early so you can do your chanting and bathing. You clean yourself so you serve Krishna. Go to school. Learn skills which will help you to serve Krishna. For example, language, so you can read Krishna books. Reading, read Krishna books. Talking, talk about Krishna. Cook for Krishna. Eat food that is only offered to Krishna. Clean, keep the home and temple clean for their lordships. Work, earn money to sustain and use the extra income in the service of the Lord. It's the deity of Krishna and host spiritual activity. Singing, sing the kirtans glorifying Krishna. Dancing, dance for Krishna kirtan. Plans to fulfill the desires of Krishna and Guru. Social media and technology used for the outreach of Krishna's activities. Networking, word of Krishna. Raising funds for Krishna's activities. Therefore, one who performs everyday activities and engages his senses for pleasing Krishna under the guidance of a spiritual master from karma bandhana, or the entanglement of karma, and attain pure love of Krishna. So here's what she's a 14-year-old girl. Yeah, 14-year-old girl who's explaining the art of work, this sublime way of doing your normal activities in life, but orienting them to please Krishna. See? So she talked about work, eating, cooking, talking, reading, going to school, bathing, sleeping, buying a house, shopping, everything. Singing, dancing, planning, social media and technology, networking. You see? What's more practical than this? There's nothing more practical than this, right? You don't have to go to the Himalayas. You don't have to, stop eating and just meditate. No. See, the impersonalist philosophies, the Mayavad philosophy, believes that you attain perfection by renunciation. Krishna consciousness teaches that you attain perfection by learning to use everything in Krishna's service. You don't have to renounce everything, but you have to learn how to use it favorably in Krishna's service. So you don't deny, like my body would say, no, don't eat delicious food, it's not good for you. But the devotees will make delicious food for Krishna, and if Krishna offers it back as prasadam, they will eat it, honoring Krishna prasad. You see, this is the major difference between impersonalist philosophy and personal philosophy of the Vaishnavas. So, you see the Naga Babas right now at the Kumbh Mela. they come down once every 4 years or 12 years from their mountain ashrams, where they're, all, they put ashes on their body, and they have long hair, and they do all kinds of austerities. And there are not many of them, right? Who's going to do that? You're going to become a Nagababa.
Way too hard.
Yeah. So that's something, you have 1 billion people in India. If there's maybe 2,000 or 3,000 Nagababas at the most, right? But yet, what we just read down, this you can do. You don't have to become a Nagababa to be completely renounced. You can do it. But renunciation means desire for sense gratification and accepting that everything belongs to Krishna and learning how to use everything properly in Krishna's service. That's real renunciation. Okay, so that's, you see, we just had a little summary of the last 3 verses that we studied, plus the verse today. Right? And you can see how it's very profound. And where does it lead to? It leads to liberation by the modes of material nature. You're not, let's say, discouraged by failure in life. Just like the famous example who graduated IIT,
Yeah.
right?
He's
Raghuram. Well, you didn't know who he was until I spoke about him several years ago. But I keep
When
bringing.
you talk to him?
What?
You talk to him?
No, I spoke about him. No, but he's a classic example of a person who succeeded tremendously, who had great education, succeeded tremendously, and then lost everything because he speculated on the stock market. And instead of, because he didn't know anything else but money was his God, material success was his goal. And when he failed spectacularly, lost everything because buying on margin and the stock market tanked, and then he had to pay up. Right? Okay, let's just start all over again. We'll go back to India. We'll live with our parents for a year or two. I'll start all over again. Right? I have all this knowledge. I can do it again. No. He kills his wife and his kids and his mother-in-law. I looked at it again. I forgot about the mother-in-law. He killed the mother-in-law also, right? And he kills himself. Why? Because he has no knowledge. Although he's born in Andhra Pradesh, he has great education. He had no knowledge of God. Zero knowledge of God. Right? Only material success. And because he failed spectacularly, committed suicide. But why does he have to kill his wife-in-law? Huh? Not dumb. Yeah, you're right. It's dumb. Yes.
You said it was some type of suicide.
What?
You said it was like some other type of suicide. Yeah, you kill people like the no, that. You said like it's a different type of suicide. You said something like suicide. No,
it's a murder-suicide. That's what it is. A murder-suicide. Yes.
Was it because they...
No, they didn't want to die.
Oh.
He had a 17-year-old son and I think a 6 or 8-year-old son. I think he had 3 kids. He killed them because he was stupid. Right? And he called it, and he wrote a letter saying it was anything honorable about that.
No.
I mean, he could have gone back to India and started all over again.
He never faced the failure. Okay.
Because he had no knowledge of God. So what is being said here? In success or failure, you continue in Krishna consciousness. You're not fazed by success or failure. Okay? That's the real devotee. You're not honor and dishonor, success or failure, riches or poverty, fame or infamy, right? Honor or dishonor. Continue going. Okay, Ria, how big how wide did you open your mouth just now? Give us an idea. Show everybody how big you opened your mouth. Was it as big as it's pretty big. What are you supposed to do when you yawn like that? Put your hand over your mouth. 'Cause nobody wants to see your tonsils. Okay? Pay attention now. Pay attention. Okay, so are there any questions? See, this is teaching to be unfazed, but not never disturbed by success or failure, by happiness or misery, by honor or dishonor. In all situations, remaining equipoised. Yeah. Yes.
Why do we have to do that though?
Why do we have to what?
Why do we have to not care about success or failure?
No, we didn't say not care about it. We said
Oh yeah,
not
be
being
affected.
affected by it. There's a big difference about not caring and not being affected.
So you could be here to do a lot of money in Krishna, it's successful.
No, otherwise you'd be like Kartik Raghuram.
Oh, never mind.
He's a bad
It was just I had a misconception in the way.
Yeah, okay. And this is what it says: Yoga stak kurukarmani sangam tyakva mani dhananjaya siddhi siddhayo samo bhutvam samadvam yoga uchyate. Perform your duty equipoised, O Arjuna, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. Okay, what does equanimity mean? And equipoised.
Oh, I
Yes?
think I have this in
Huh?
my glossary. I was gonna look for it.
Oh, you're gonna ask-
Equipoised
yeah.
means like you're supporting all the sides.